Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, guiding you through the trails of Glacier National Park. Glad you're joining us for another episode. We are excited to get on the trail today. One of our favorite places, right around Lake McDonald. We are going to be talking about Snyder Lakes. And it's a little bit of a lesser-known hike. I don't know if I call it a hidden gem, but definitely something that is not on the top of the list for everyone, but a terrific option on this Sperry Trail that leaves across the road from Lake McDonald Lodge. And you can go to a number of different destinations from here, like Fish Lake or Sperry Chalet or Mount Brown. And we've had episodes on each of those. So if you want to go hear more about them, be sure to check that out. But today, Sarah, Snyder Lakes. And we have talked about in another episode as well in the history of Lake McDonald Lodge, which is very interesting. And you took us through that. The namesake of this hike, there's a little bit of a story to it, Snyder.
Yeah, George Snyder was the first person to build a home, so to speak. It was a hotel, a small little hotel. It looked like a house on the site near where Lake McDonald Lodge is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he liked it. He built a house, a lodge, and then went through some different hands in between. But a lot of it starts with Snyder, and of course, this hike and these lakes named after him.
Yeah. So as Josh mentioned, the trailhead is at the end of the parking area by Lake McDonald Lodge where the pit toilets are. It's the Sperry Trail. Essentially, it just go on that and it branches off from there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you mentioned that because Lake McDonald Lodge has facilities, amenities. You can get all set to go on your hike. And you know that coming back, you're right into civilization right away, and you've got whatever you need. You've got restaurants, you've got swimming if you want it. You've got the camp store, general store. You've got restrooms, and plenty of parking, and it's a great place to start and finish a hike.
I really like this side of the park because of the lushness it holds. So immediately you will notice how dense this forest is once entering the trail. You're entering part of the park that gets an ample amount of moisture with trees like Douglas fir, larch, western red cedar, western hemlock, and all those prefer and thrive in this type of climate. The understory is rich in epiphytes like the ferns, the lichens, and the moss that can grow, without a lot of nutrients, which is awesome. You will notice the witch's hair lichen dangling from the branches of the trees, which it kind of leaves you feeling like, where am I? Have I entered a rainforest along the Washington coast? And that's exactly what this area of the park mimics.
That's fantastic. You lost me somewhere in there with epiphytes, and the science behind all of this. It is green, it is moist, it is beautiful, and especially, I'll say, after a rain, some of these hikes are just marvelous with the colors because the trees and even some of the burnt trees are deep black. And you've got, hopefully the blue sky, if you're in the early season or late, is a little bit of white snow. And the moss and these trees are incredibly green. And I just love it because it's like you said, you're in a different place, you're in a different world, but it's a smorgasbord for the eyes.
This trail is interesting because honestly, you transition through two distinct forest zones. The lower elevation is a lush, ancient inland rainforest that resembles Olympic National Park, really, and the Hoh Rainforest along the Washington coast. And the reason this occurs here is due to not much between the Pacific Ocean and here to stop the flow of that moist Pacific weather. And honestly, this is the furthest east this occurs in the U.S. due to the moist air getting hung up on the Continental Divide.
That is pretty neat. Yeah, nothing is pushing it up. Nothing is holding it up. Nothing's stopping it on its way here. And that, as you've said, is we're getting almost the same sort of vegetation, climate effects and things like that right here in Glacier.
And I would just want to note, too, that if you're going early season when we're getting a lot of rain, this trail can get pretty darn muddy. So, choose footwear accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. And there is. It's also stock, right? There's a horse corral right in the beginning of this trail for the first mile and a half or so. Could be used by stock and, going up to Sperry Chalet. And yeah, I remember hiking this, there's a stream. You get closer to the lake, but there's a little stream that careens back and forth over the trail. And obviously in the early season, those are going to be, it's going to be running a little higher, a little heavier. But let's also, Sarah, take one step back. Snyder Lakes is a fairly decent hike, a moderate hike. The distance being just under 9 miles to the lower Snyder Lake.
Right.
There are a pair there that you will reach, and the one is fairly, simple, and the trail leads right to it. But the lake above, you can also kind of get to if you want to take on a challenge.
We'll touch on that later.
Okay, but just under 9 miles, about 2,000 feet of elevation. So it's kind of a 2-to-1 mileage versus elevation versus thousands of feet. So it's fun. It's steep. There are portions of this trail that are relatively steep, but we'll call it moderate.
As the trail begins gaining elevation, you kind of exit that lower montane zone and begin entering into the verge of the subalpine zone of the Douglas fir, subalpine spruce, subalpine fir. So the forest changes just a little bit. And speaking of change, you will notice evidence of the 2017 Sprague fire. We got some scorched trees, we got some burn scars, we got some dead snags. And what you will also notice is how quickly a forest will start to regenerate after, a fire, and all this brilliant new undergrowth. A lot of plants take advantage of all this abundant sunlight. So forest fires are good, and they're healthy for the forest. They burn things that are, being naughty to the trees and stuff.
Sure.
All the pine bark beetles.
Interaction between the ecosystem and the vegetation and the growth, like you said. And that was a big one, though. It's also at the same time very devastating, that Sprague fire in 2017. We saw that close up, and
we did.
Man, that was I don't even know how to describe it. Words can't describe when you see a huge forest fire, especially in a place like Glacier National Park, where you've been to these places, you've stood where the fire is, and you're watching it, and it's with jaw dropping, and you just don't know what to do or say. But there's a lot of emotion.
Yeah, just seeing the power that the fire.
Right.
It's so powerful. But it did burn the dormitory of Sperry Chalet. It has now been rebuilt. So,
and we'll see you there in July. We've got reservations, which is hard. It's awesome. It's hard to get. Certain dates you need to plan way ahead. But we were very fortunate, and we will be there in this upcoming summer. But you mentioned the burn also. That affects the hike quite a bit. There's limited shade once you get out of the forest, right? I mean, if the trees have burned, there's just not the foliage to protect. So be aware, depending on the time of season, that this could be a very hot hike. On the other hand, you can see so much more.
Yeah, that's true. And there's places to filter water. You have Snyder Creek that you cross. That's almost pretty quickly, so you probably aren't ready to filter. But once you get to the lake, you can filter there, which is good. And I just want to touch a little bit more on the vegetation that comes in after a fire. And one that sticks out the most to me is the fireweed, of course. This type of flower needs a ton of sunlight, and it loves that nutrient-rich ash soil post-fire. It's super fast-growing, and it's super resilient. It's a groundbreaking pioneer plant, and there's not a lot of competing vegetation. So the seeds quickly take root, and they're beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I love the fireweed. And you can tell, wherever the fire has been, it's a pink, it's a purple. They're an amazing flower. And you see them in abundance in these places. And it just, again, everything happens for a reason. And the processes in the evolution of the park and what it looks like, they're all beautiful.
Yeah, a single stalk can produce up to 80,000 fluffy, downy seeds that ride the ever-changing wind currents for miles. Yeah, they spread really easily. And when you see it, it kind of reminds me of back in the Midwest growing up with the milkweed. And the milkweed goes to seed. And
float on the breeze. We've got plenty more to say about hiking to Snyder Lakes. We're going to take a short break, but stick with us. We'll be right back.
Trees with deep roots stand strong, and so do we. Freedom Bank has been rooted in Columbia Falls for over 20 years, serving the whole Flathead Valley with state-of-the-art banking. Whether you're banking from your cabin, campsite, or kayak, we've got you covered. Freedom Bank, rooted here, ready everywhere. We want to be your bank. Give us a call at 892-1776. Member FDIC.
Welcome back. We are the Hiking Fools today discussing Snyder Lakes, a terrific hike on the west side of the park. Near Lake McDonald Lodge, right across the street is that trailhead. And Sarah, this was actually the first officially constructed trail in Glacier National Park, the Sperry Trail. Yeah, Dr. Lyman Sperry, we wanted to take a route to the glacier and brought a group from Minnesota. And it's the first officially constructed trail in Glacier National Park. So
I love that fact. I had no idea that trail was that. I do remember, though, that George Snyder helped discover Sperry Glacier, and he was eager to help his guests to explore up there at the glacier, too.
Well, they were all right in that area. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to go back to fireweed because I want to nerd out on it a little bit, and I got cut off. So
sorry about that.
The plant itself spreads really quickly. It's a rhizome, which is connected, underground root system, These guys don't like shade, so as the ecosystem recovers and taller vegetation returns, the fireweed will kind of disappear in this area. So while it's here, enjoy it. You can see it at many places in the park too, of course. And I read somewhere, I'm not going to give the recipe, and I want y'all to research this, but I remember I came across a recipe last year for making fireweed scones.
Yo, I didn't know where you're going with this recipe. But okay.
Look it up.
Okay.
Look it up.
Well, check it first.
I have never made it.
Okay.
Because I think you have to harvest the flowers, obviously, at a certain time.
Okay.
But with anything you can't harvest from the park. So don't pick out of the park.
Right.
But fireweed can be found in other places around, the Flathead and stuff. But
right.
Yeah, anyways, I thought that was a really cool fact. So look that up.
It is. In case you didn't know, Sarah and I are married and we met working in the park. And so we can be a little chippy with each other and it's okay.
I just want to note, too, that the trail does come across a few junctions, but, the Park Service does a really good job.
Yeah, this trail is well marked.
Yeah. They do a really good job noting the signs. So just, follow your junction accordingly towards Snyder Lakes and you will be just fine.
In fact, I was looking at our hiking guide, and Sarah hiked this trail. I hiked this 5 days after I first arrived in Montana in 2005. And it was one of my first experiences of the entire park. And I had the date written down, and it was so neat to think you can put yourself right back there. Do you know that? With any sort of notes, I have a list of the people that we did this with, and it took me right back there. I could remember the look of it and the amount of snow and all the things, and just the trail and the feeling. So there's something special about hiking a trail and where it sits in your memory based on those things, the company you were with, what you experienced, what you saw, smelled, and heard. But it's just I have a great memory of this one.
Oh, that's so sweet. I have to confess that I don't remember hiking that time with you, but that's okay. I do remember hiking it another time, I think in 2010.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, with one of our friends, and it was snow covered, and it was pretty mushy.
Yeah, early season. Let's mention that. Early season. This lake sits at just over 5,000 feet, I believe. And so, early season, it's going to be snowy. And I know people that snowshoe to it in the middle of winter, and you can do that. But be aware, as we mentioned, the trail itself could be a little sloppy in the early season, and you'll encounter snow most likely.
And when you said aware, I just want to note too, we kind of say this in all our hikes, and I think it's important that you need to be very bear aware on any trail in Glacier. And just to remind you here to constantly make noise, be talking, let the bear know it's people that are coming through. They appreciate that. You don't want to startle a bear.
In this area for sure. Be aware in this area, this trailhead. And it's thick vegetation to start with. As you get closer to the lake, there's, you're almost walking through a scree field as you approach.
Yeah, the lake is located in a glacial cirque, which is really cool to see. We commonly see that in Glacier Park. And you mentioned that elevation. Snyder Lake offers backcountry sites as well. 2 are reservable well in advance on recreation.gov. So make sure you check that out. If you don't, it's kind of nice to hike in somewhere and stick around in this beautiful place. Yeah,
really take it all in. So there's usually at a backcountry site, there's a number of sites, and then a portion of them are reservable, and the other is a walk-up. Yeah,
and if you don't want to, Lower Snyder Lake is a perfect picnic spot. I just want people to be mindful of the leave no trace principles, pack in,
Pack out?
Whatever you pack in, pack that out too. Don't leave any crumbs or wrappers. And we always like to snack at the food prep area if it's a backcountry site, because that's the rules that they have to follow. We don't want to eat at the lake and deposit food and such and attract bears down there.
That's smart, Sarah. Yeah, if there is a food prep area, that's a great place to set up and have a snack or a lunch. But we mentioned the Upper Snyder Lake too, which there's no established trail to reach that, but people go there and check it out. It's a wonderful bushwhack, as our friend Blake Passmore would say in his book. And you can get there. In my opinion, seeing the lower lake is pretty solid, and in that glacial cirque, our absolute favorite background.
Yeah, there's no real official trail up to Upper Snyder Lake, but you kind of bushwhack up through Talus and a scree slope, and you have to locate your route. So, make sure you research that a little bit. It's been packed down a little, but you just never know what the vegetation is like every year. Sometimes it's hard to find.
Constantly changing.
Yeah, so to locate your route, you will need to cross Snyder Creek at the south end of the lake before your steep bushwhacking starts. And there's a little bit of navigation through some class 2, 3. There's a gully there with some ledges, so just be careful. But once you arrive up there, it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's great. When we talk about it, maybe you hear this every time during an episode, but as we get near the finish of the episode, I think let's go and hike this right now, because I'm so excited, reminiscing a little bit. And this, I want to mention too, this is was at least a good lake for fishing. And always check the regulations. But fishing in Glacier National Park, no license is required, and so it's a great place to fish. Pack your stuff up, and I remember as our friend called them, and we call them cutties.
Yeah.
It's I believe has a good population of cutthroat trout.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, be aware of the bears, especially when you're doing some bushwhacking. The bears aren't used to people going off on these off-trail routes, so to speak. So it's especially important that you're making noise, not to startle them. They're in this thick vegetation, they're eating, they're being a bear, so make a lot of noise. The upper lake sits in an area that's surrounded by Edwards Mountain, the Little Matterhorn, and Mount Brown, and the elevation of Upper Snyder Lake is 5,575 feet. So it's a little bit of a climb to get up there from the lower lake, but I think it's totally worth it, and you should do it. And it also adds an extra 3 miles to your day, so about a total of 12 miles.
Okay,
when you're
good
done.
to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a couple of mountains there, a couple popular mountains, and as we mentioned, if you turn off, Mount Brown Lookout is an incredible destination. It offers a spectacular view of Lake McDonald from above. But it's a butt kicker, a calf burner, as I like to say. And if you accidentally turn off of this trail onto the Mount Brown Lookout Trail, you will know it after a couple of switchbacks.
And I'm pretty sure when we were at the summit of Mount Brown, we could see the Snyder Lakes, couldn't we?
Oh, yeah.
I can't quite remember, but we must have been able to. Yeah. So it's kind of cool to know that Upper Snyder Lake is at the base of these 3 amazing mountains. You can see Little Matterhorn from Avalanche Lake, and Edwards you can see from the Flathead Valley. It kind of pows all over the place.
Yeah, right through the V. Yeah, that is that. You're good points. That is so interesting to know. Glacier is such an expanse, and it's got so many features, geological features, alpine lakes. Once you get in and explore it to the level that we have and the level that we're sharing with you, you'll see the mountain that you've climbed is just above the lake that you are now hiking to, which is on the other side of another hike that you've done and another alpine lake that you've reached. And then you get even higher in a different portion of the park, and you can see everything that's on the other side of the Continental Divide, for example. So Glacier is so interconnected, not only ecologically, but the topography. So to recap, Snyder Lake's a great day hike. Moderate, it takes an effort. It's just about 9 miles to the lower lake and right around 2,000 feet of elevation gain. So you'll be breathing, and there's well-marked trail. Starts right there at the Sperry Trailhead across from Lake McDonald Lodge. And there's so much to offer on this beautiful hike. And Sarah, we got to get out there and do it again.
I'm ready.
I'm just anxious, but don't forget. I just want to mention at the recording of this episode, important dates. Campground reservations, ticketed shuttle this year, backcountry permits, all of the things that you need to be looking into to enjoy your experience at Glacier. Use the NPS website, recreation.gov, to figure all of that out. Check out our Instagram page at HikingFoolsMT to see some great photos from our adventures, and tune in next time and check out more episodes online. All the episodes are somewhat connected. You'll find that if you really dig in and listen. And remember to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts for the latest Hiking Fools episode. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, encouraging you to always go